In this step, we're going to assemble the upper arm. The upper arm has 7 plastic pieces. There's no gluing done in this step. There are 4 6 by 3/4 inch screws for hold the servo, and 9 1.5 number 6 by 1.5 inch bolts to hold the arm assembly together. Over here we have one of the high torque servos, the servo hub, and the set screw that holds the servo hub onto the servo. Now this servo hub, you actually have 2 different types in your kit. One is set up for Futaba sprockets, which is what we're going to use here, and it has an F on the back. The other one is called High Tech, has an H. Your kit will have 2 Futabas and 1 High Tech. And the difference is the sprocket pattern inside the hole is different for the 2 different types of servos. So it's important to make sure you use the Futaba ones for this step for this high power servo. Now the simplest way to assemble this upper arm is frankly to install the servo first. So to do the servo into its hole and set it up so that the sprocket is centered around what's left of what looks like a fiducial hole here, a little circle. Don't flip it around the other way or else we won't be able to grab the lower arm later. So and that way, go ahead and put the nuts on. There's 4 of them. So actually, there's more room here than there are on the micro servos. You also do not have to do any widening of these holes for standard size servos. Now, if you do assemble the entire arm, you actually can get access to these bolts. There's enough room in the assembled upper arm to get access to these bolts again. You don't have to tear the whole thing down. But it's just since you haven't assembled the arm yet, it's really easy to assemble the servo if you're just working with the plate. Okay, we'll go ahead and tighten this down. So that's the servo attached to the top plate. Our next step is now to assemble the upper arm. To assemble the upper arm, we'll start with the base plate. I personally like to have the etching on the outside, so touch that there. But it really doesn't matter. Everything will still line up the way it should. Go ahead and put the side plates in. They're keyed in a certain way, so they only go in one way. Makes it very difficult to make an accidental mistake. These pop in here. Then you're going to take the top plate and you're going to line up with all these little holes. And everything should drop into place when you're done. Takes a little patience to line everything up. Alright, next step now is to put the 9 bolts in. Now when you put the 9 bolts in, it's very important that the bolt heads be on the bottom plate so that the nuts come out on the plate with all the holes on it. This is very important because when you assemble the upper arm to the column, you don't want the nut and extra bolt poking out and scratching the column. And then eventually when you're comfortable that everything is the way you want it, you can go through and put a drop of Loctite onto these bolts. I would recommend using the blue Loctite, not the red. The blue is more than strong enough. Reds are so aggressive that there's a good shot you could actually break the plastic or strip the screw as you try to disassemble it. And you want some ability someday to come back and open this if you ever had to. Alright, so I'm putting on the final bolt here and tightening it down. I would recommend you use a small wrench or pliers to go around to tighten up the nuts. You don't have to over tighten it, and in fact, if you over tighten it, you potentially can crack the plastics. You just want a good solid turn just to make sure everything's nice and snug. Right. Final step, let's go ahead and put the sprocket on for now, and then tie down. You may need to remove this later when we power up the servos to handle alignment.